Hello, and welcome to the Citrus Production Best Practice Handbook. We all want to improve, and it is no different in business. Continuous improvement is a structured way of developing your business and reaching full potential. To this end, I would like to introduce the Citrus Production Best Practice Handbook and how to access it. I will also place the handbook in the context of a continuous improvement program and provide an overview of the handbook, explain how to use it, and then briefly talk about some of the next steps we could take in a comprehensive continuous improvement journey. In short, the handbook is a resource covering most areas of managing your business, including key areas of citrus production. There are 14 workflows, or chapters if you will, for example, production, and each containing several toolkits which deal with workflow components, for example, irrigation. Each toolkit contains a definition of that topic and why it is an important practice or component. It provides key success factors and execution steps of that topic, that area of the business, some assessment questions, and a table with links to additional resources. Farm owners, farm managers, and supervisors can use the handbook. And please note, it is not an audit. You're not trying to satisfy an external party, but it is your way to set the bar, set the standard, and to drive continuous improvement in your business. So the farmer and his or her team would select the most important areas of improvement and focus on step-by-step development. The process may be led by the owner or the farmer, but it should be owned by the supervisors and the teams, because ultimately the empowerment and development of your teams will determine the success of your business. Allow me to provide an overview of the Citrus Production Handbook and its content. You will see on the left, there are a number of workflows from 1 to 6 and then from 7 through to 14. For example, visioning, planning, measuring, and leading deals with setting the key strategic objectives, with developing your business and organization in such a way that you can deliver on that strategy. Measuring and managing performance, as in your key performance indicators. Leader standard work, a new concept to many. And leading change and improvement, that is, how to implement and lead a change for the better. And then you get into the daily work, the seasonal plan, operational guidance, and execution, where you're in the trenches and you're doing what you need to do day by day, week by week, month by month, to drive a successful operation. Planning for operational success, staying on course, operational reviews, the use of visual management, and the like. There are a few new things in the toolkit that are interesting and exciting. For example, Gemba walks, which is a wonderful way of walking your farm, working with your teams, and mentoring and coaching them in the process. And then there are production and harvesting toolkits, as well as others like product quality, health and safety, maintenance and asset care, procurement, administrative excellence, institutional effectiveness. We've included a toolkit on strategic partnerships and what a successful strategic partnership looks like, as well as some guidance on good management of property associations and cooperatives, which can sometimes be a difficult area to get right. Value chain alignment deals with your understanding of the value chain and the information you should receive with regard to your value chain. Problem solving focuses on your teams and their ability to solve problems. You will also undertake some larger projects, and improvement projects is the next topic. And finally is skills development planning, the important area of developing managers and supervisors, and then the technical employee and team training. It's a broad range. 2 of the workflows are production and harvesting focused, but all the workflows deal directly with managing an effective business, and that ultimately translates into higher yields, good performance, and sustainable and competitive business. The handbook is available on the CRW in digital form on the Citrus Resource Warehouse. So you would go to the Citrus Resource Warehouse site and you access the handbook by registering as a member of the CRW. This is easy to do. Click on the user account request and you'll be set up as a member. The reason for membership is that the intellectual property of the handbook is reserved for members of the Citrus Growers Association of Southern Africa and is not available publicly for anybody. Not only is there information in the handbook that is proprietary, but there are also links to information from the CRI, technical fact sheets, information from the Citrus Academy, technical documents, checklists, and so forth that we would like to keep for the eyes of the Citrus Growers Association of Southern Africa. So register as a member and you have unlimited access to the handbook. I'd like to contextualize the handbook within a broader program of continuous improvement. The one is a beginning, the handbook, that should lead to a longer term initiative of continuous improvement. The handbook by itself is only a starting point. It provides information, it defines key success factors and what good looks like, and it enables the development and sharing of internal standards. But one needs to move from theory, let's say, information and resources to implementation and practice. And that is the essential nature of a continuous improvement program. It is a structured program where you plan the improvement. You could use the handbook to identify what areas of improvement are most urgent. You would set and share the standards. You would implement that improvement. You would show the evidence of that implementation. So you may have new standard operating procedures. You may have trained your teams better, and the like. And then you would evaluate the success of the improvement activity, and the success is measured in terms of improved performance. If you feel that the success hasn't come, or that the improvement hasn't quite delivered what you expected, you may wish to go back to the implementation, look at the practices, have you implemented them properly, and repeat the exercise or reinitiate the exercise, and ultimately get to a point where you are happy with the performance that you've achieved. And when that is done, you can either go deeper into that area or you can decide on other areas of improvement. So it's a continuous improvement process. Furthermore, continuous improvement isn't just a wish that today or tomorrow will be better than today and next season is going to be better than this season. It is led by key principles. It is a formal initiative that has certain characteristics. Firstly, you need to have a clear vision and the leadership to drive that vision forward. So do you have a clear picture of what your farm, what your operation could look like? Can you define it? Can you explain it? Can you communicate it? Secondly, you may be leading that initiative, but the initiative is owned by the supervisors and teams. It is a process of incremental improvement, a step-by-step process of improvement. And this should give you some comfort that you don't need to do everything at the same time. The beauty of continuous improvement is that you start where you are today. You decide on what you need to do and you work on a step-by-step basis. Yes, there may be some big improvement projects within that step-by-step process. You may wish to improve your irrigation system or expand your orchards or build a dam. Those are big projects. Nonetheless, the underlying principle is one of steady step-by-step change. Shared learning is central to continuous improvement. This is making information, best practice, and innovation available to the larger citrus community. You would start with your teams, but there's every opportunity to share information regionally or within study group, to look at the latest innovations and to build that into your continuous improvement process and into certain practices that you may wish to improve. Continuous improvement is dependent and built on employee empowerment. Without employee and team empowerment, you're driving with the handbrake on. You will never reach the potential that your farm has. Measurement and feedback is critical. Without measurement and feedback, it is like driving a car blind or trying to be a competitive team member without a coach. So looking at the data, looking at measurement, knowing that you're improving instead of just believing that you're improving, looking at the numbers and the facts, and measuring accurately over time is central to a continuous improvement program. And finally, the continuous improvement journey goes well beyond making a change once. It is important that the routines, the habits, the standard operating procedures, and the rituals are fully embedded in the way the business operates. It becomes part of the culture, it becomes central to the way people think and the way people behave. That should give you an idea that continuous improvement is an intentional and structured program and process. In summary, you can ask yourself some basic questions. Do we have a clear vision, sense of purpose and intent of developing a top-class organization? Do you have a picture? Do we have a structured way to implement a continuous improvement initiative? Do you have a process, a methodology? And finally, extremely importantly, do we believe that our employees and teams are the talent pool on which a sustainably high-performing organization can be built? Because without belief in your team and that they can rise to the occasion, you will not reach your full potential. So, Citrus Production Handbook is in place. We understand what a continuous improvement program aims to achieve. Now, and ultimately, it is important to look at performance. In truth, a continuous improvement program is done for one reason only. It is not a hobby. It is not a nice to have. It is implemented to drive commercial success. And I would like to emphasize the relationship between practice and performance. Continuous improvement and the handbook focuses on your practices, on getting your processes right. But the evidence or the result of those practices being successful is the actual performance. So let's have a look at the performance and practice matrix. On the left, you have performance. That is, measures of yield, productive land, export pack-out percentage, prices that you're getting, production costs, labor productivity, all those hard numbers. Those are indicators of your success and your performance. And on the bottom axis, you have practice, how you're doing things, your standard operating procedures, your irrigation scheduling, your plant nutrition planning, and the like. If you are poor at your practice and your performance is also poor, let's say below 50% in each instance, you're like a punching bag. You're suffering. You're taking a lot of pain. You're not performing. If you improve slightly, let's say between 50 and 60%, you might make the weight of that weight class, but you're not in the fight, and you're certainly not going to win it. Really, what you want to do is you want to be a contender. You want to be in the top right-hand corner. So you have a great year, 80% performance measure, but your practices are poor. The chances are likely that you won't go the distance. You might have a lucky year. You may have had great weather, great conditions. You may have had grants for fertilizer assistance in other ways that don't necessarily translate into sustainable practice. So your 1 year is good, your next year may not be. You're not resilient. You cannot handle setbacks. You may be a farm with very good practice, but haven't quite seen the performance yet. You're promising. So you're in the bottom right-hand corner. Your practices are good. Your orchards may be young. You may not have achieved full carrying capacity and maturity of your trees. As a promising candidate, you're in a better position on the longer term than somebody that cannot go the distance. Improving your practice drives performance and will drive you to becoming a contender and possibly a world-class producer. Just a brief overview of the type of performance measures that you could introduce. On the productivity side, land use, size of the farm, area suitable for citrus production and the like. Your yield, your tons per hectare, per type, your yield per orchard age, your quality measures, export pack out per type of glass, fruit size, rejects and losses, cost, production costs, labor costs, delivery. Are you delivering at a time when market demand is high? Are you in the running for that window where prices are best? What is your time between picking and pack house? How quickly does your fruit move through the process until it reaches the cold chain? All those are delivery types of measurement. We're a labor-intensive business, so safety is an issue. Injury on duty as a cumulative number across the year. And finally, morale. Morale seems a bit vague, maybe, but Morale means that your people and your teams are completely engaged and switched on. And an indicator of that is that they are doing all the invisible things that will make a big visible difference when it comes to harvesting and selling. So the off-season compliance, the fertilizer, the pruning, the orchard sanitation, all those things will make a big difference to your ultimate performance. So those are just some of the measures that we would suggest are critical to determine whether your practices are effective. Let's have a look at the Citrus Production Best Practice Handbook itself. Once you've registered on the Citrus Resource Warehouse, you will find the full content of the Citrus Production Best Practice Handbook. As you can see there, workflow 1 to 4 on this page with the various toolkits in each. You click on a toolkit and you will see that there's a PDF document available which you can download, you can print, and there are also resources, more detailed resources linked to each toolkit. Each toolkit has a certain format. It gives you the target audience, who is it for, the definition, what it is of the topic, why that area of the business is important, provides success factors, provides execution steps, where execution steps make sense. Some areas of the business work on a step-by-step process. You have to do one thing first, then the second thing, then the third, fourth, and so on. In other instances, you merely have success factors, and where it isn't sort of a step-by-step process, we will have omitted execution steps. You have assessment questions, which allow you to check your status, and these assessment questions will be linked to the success factors. And then you have resources. So each toolkit is relatively short, easy to read. The aim is to provide the farmer and his team with details of the most important business and production practices, which you should be good at, and key success factors for each practice. There are assessment questions. And then, very importantly, this handbook is not intended to replicate the extensive and excellent material that already exists on the CRW. It references that material, but it provides you with a checklist and an overview of what good looks like, comprehensively enough for you to be able to assess your business and to remind yourself and aspire to good practice across all areas of business. So the toolkit has a resource list attached to it, and that resource list provides greater detail. Here's the example of the toolkit and an example of a resource link. In this instance, it's a video on the introduction to planting management, which was produced by the Citrus Academy. Just in terms of assessment questions, the assessment questions are aimed at giving you a percentage score. So if you look at this example related to planting and young tree care, there are 8 questions. If you are able to answer yes to 4 of the 8, you will have received 50% score. All the questions are meant to be answered as yes or no. If it's a maybe, then I would advise you to answer no. So it's a fairly clear indicator of whether you have something in place or whether you do not. The assessment questions highlight areas of improvement, and the questions are linked to the success factors and execution steps. So you automatically will assess your status with regard to the key success factors when you go through the questions. There are up to 10 questions in each toolkit, and where it is possible or sensible, questions progress in complexity. In this example, it's not really the case. You have 8 assessment questions that don't really go in order of priority or an order of complexity. But there are areas of the business where you can go from having basic practice in place. Let's say you would be able to answer yes for the first 4 questions, then it becomes a little bit more difficult maybe to answer yes, put in place those things that would enable you to answer yes for the next 4 questions. And you would have to be fairly sophisticated to answer yes for question 8, 9, and 10. So it progresses, but that is not the case for everything. But it is a useful approach that determines the way some of the questions are structured. The grower and the team should select those practices which require most urgent improvement, which will yield the biggest benefit. So it is not necessary to go from the top to the bottom of the handbook. You select what is most important to you. You may decide there are 4 areas of the business that you want to focus on most urgently in year 1, then go on to other areas of the business. It is up to you. You lead the process, you use the resource as you need to use it. Ultimately, you should aim to achieve good practice in all areas of the business. So you would want to look back in 3 or 4 years' time and say, we have got good practice across all areas of the business. We've achieved 80% score on 80% or 90% of all workflows. But that is not a requirement. Again, it is not an audit. This is a coaching and improvement tool. So you can use the toolkit in 4 ways. Firstly, high-level information and overview. The toolkits are generally quite short and to the point. So you can go through them fairly quickly and you can decide which areas you want to focus on in greater detail. On a second level, I call it the team talk level. Toolkits are short enough to enable you to talk through them with your team. So let us just remind ourselves, in this area, these are the 5 or 6 or 10 key success factors, the most important things that we should be good at. We seem to be doing well on 8 of the 10, but there are 2 things that we seem to neglect repeatedly. So it allows you to give a short and sharp team talk, reminder, and leave it at that. But it sharpens the memory, sharpens the mind, sharpens the intention of your team. The third level is more rigorous. Here you would take time with your team to go through the assessment questions in detail. So you may be able to answer yes, there could be a but, yes, but, or no, but. We have this in place, but we still need to do A, B, and C. And this allows for more in-depth reflection. It may take an hour or 2 or 3, and it inevitably leads to some form of an action plan. So you're going beyond just reminding yourself of what needs to be done or understanding what you aren't doing to taking an action. Well, this week we're going to improve this and that. Next month we're going to look at that. This is an area of urgency which we need to put money and time into, and so forth. So that is the more in-depth assessment. And then finally, there may be areas where you need to do detailed research. So on the third level, you do the assessment. And on the fourth level, you may have an area, let's say phytosanitary challenge, pests, or disease problem, where you need either advice from an expert or you would like to read up more. And that is where the resource tables in each toolkit become useful. So there we go, 4 different levels of engagement with the toolkit, each one useful, each one more detailed and more rigorous. It is important to emphasize that the Citrus Handbook is the start. A continuous improvement program would be the ideal next step. And for that to take place, one would ideally want a method of really recording both practice assessments as well as actual performance. So if you look at that flow there, you would do assessments, you would measure, you would facilitate improvement, and you would track progress. And such a system is the ultimate goal of introducing a continuous improvement system, but we are not quite there yet. But we are working with the Citrus Growers Association and with growers to move from merely a resource through to a full continuous improvement program and system. Finally, I would like to emphasize that when you embark on a continuous improvement program, and even if you only embark on using the handbook with your teams, it is important to manage the change at farm level. Don't just start without communicating what you're trying to achieve on your farm. Firstly, define the required change. Explain to people why you need to change, what you'd like to change. Understand, discuss the impact of change. It might change the way your teams function. It might change the structure of your business. It may change the way you as a leader, farm manager in the business behave. It'll impact people. You may expect more from them. You may expect more from your teams. You may expect more involvement from your teams. Have a delivery plan and assign responsibility. This goes then beyond just talking and saying, okay, from tomorrow, this is what we're going to do, and this person is responsible for it. Always communicate the why, what, and how. Why are we changing? What are we going for? And how are we going to do it? Proactively anticipate and manage the risk. Yes, when you change things, there's a risk. Some people might not like it. Some people might push against it. Some things may be foreign and people have to learn new ways of doing it. That may take some time. You need to think about those risks and manage them. Walk the talk. Get out there with your teams. Mentor, coach, communicate, and work together. Finally, encourage ongoing feedback. Feedback from your teams, is it going well or is it not? Certainly, but also feedback from hard data. If you measure your practices, where are you? What's going well? What is not? Look at your performance measures. Look at the one version of the truth. look at clear evidence of whether you're trending up or whether you're trending down. That type of feedback is invaluable for any business. Enjoy using the handbook, and I sincerely trust and hope that this is a good start to your continuous improvement journey.